So in this particular session we are going to take a look at the architecture of the IoT devices. We'll take a look at some of the terminologies that are used, what are the nodes and what are the gateways, and we'll try to take a look at these things. So just to start with, so these will be the contents of this particular session. So we will see what is IoT, and we will see how to design devices on IoT. Protocols that are used for the IoT will be covered in the next session, and the controllers and modules used for IoT will also be covered in the next session. So before we start with the IoT concepts or IoT architecture, first let us take a look at few of the applications that have come up in the recent time, but they've become really famous and many people are using them in their day-to-day activities. So out of these applications, some of them have been listed here. So they are like Google Maps, the online cab services, the online ticket booking, the e-commerce websites, and the social networking and the online messaging apps, and then the long distance calling and the data transfer. So if you take a look at all these applications have really started to sort of come into our life, and we are able to use them on our mobile devices, and this has happened just in the last maybe 10 to 15 years, and currently these applications are being launched by each and every startup and each and every companies that has been existing into this space. So they are making use of these applications. Like for example, Google Maps is being used by, so now we'll be able to book the cabs very easily, and even the Google Maps has enabled the tracking of the ride, and you'll be able to reach in exactly that much time to your destination. So before there was Google Maps, it was very difficult to sort of figure out how far is the place, and we used to ask like many people and then sort of take guidance from the people manually, and then we used to reach that place. But all these platforms that have come up have really helped us to sort of shorten our time and understand a place in advance before we reach there. And if you can see these e-commerce websites that have come up, and the social networking website, so all these things have been possible only because of one common thing, and that is the internet. So because we are able to connect to different people all over the world on the World Wide Web, we are able to sort of integrate all these things together, and we are able to integrate 2 or 3 services together, and we are able to give it to the public at a very, very low cost. And the other thing is, like, the mobile market has improved a lot, so everyone has got a handset in their own hands, and then all these applications are becoming possible because you're able to carry that mobile device anywhere, and you're able to access all these applications. And so that is the thing that has brought everything together, and that is the internet. So some of the statistics related to this, so just starting from 1995, if you just take a look at the usage of the internet and compare with respect to the world's population. So in 1995 it was only being used by around 0.4% of the world's population, whereas you can see that the growth has been really rapid. That is, in the next 10 years or next 20 years, it has been almost like a 50% jump in the number of users. And in 2017 the data says that around 52% of the world's population is having connectivity on their end, and they're using these mobile devices, and that is the reason why all this space has become rapidly growing, and people are investing heavily into this Internet of Things domain, because more and more people are currently using these applications or using these products. So now just coming to the introduction and just starting on what is Internet of Things. Let's say, like, there are a lot of things around you, like in your home. So there are refrigerators, there are washing machines, you have your air conditioners, and so all these devices that are there, or all these products that are there around you, so you're not worried about whether they are functioning properly or not on a day-to-day basis. So even only when there is a breakdown in that particular device or that particular product, only then you're sort of taking a look at it, and then you're trying to fix it by calling someone. But let's say if these devices talk to you on your mobile platform or some sort of a thing with you, and they share their data along with you, that is how they are functioning, if we can place some sensors in it, whether they are able to get the cooling right in the case of refrigerator, and in your washing machine, whether if it can inform you that the load in the washing machine is more, or the detergent is finished, or such sort of a feedback information if it comes from that particular device. And if in your air condition some of the faults are observed by the sensors that are placed inside it, and if you can get that information on a day-to-day basis, then I think you'll be able to solve that problem beforehand till the total breakdown happens. And this thing is very much essential in the fourth point, that is we are not worried about from outside and thinking about it, that whether my body is functioning properly or not, whether my heart is beating properly or not, or is there any inbuilt problem that I might have. So in that particular case, if you can have a device which can measure the heartbeat on a day-to-day basis, or at a specific time intervals, and then if it can tell you that during certain time interval maybe the heart rate is becoming too high, and such things can actually save a person if they are attended before time. And this has been observed in many cases, that even when the persons are taken to the hospital, and if there is a delay of even half an hour or 1 hour in the critical time, it can really be damaging. So that is how the IoT can help us, that is you can get the data early, you can compare the data, and then you can take some action on it. And these are some of the things that we daily think about, that is whenever we go outside, we are worried whether the door is locked or not, and we are worried that one person, if he is outside, the other person might not come into the house, like either a family member or a friend. If he wants to have an access to your home, he will not be able to do it. But all these things can be solved by creating devices which can be placed on the doors as opening and closing mechanisms, and you will be able to place sensors in your home to see whether you have turned off your gas stove or not, or whether there is some leakage of the gas in your home. So that way you can be well aware of the situation, and you can take corrective measures by looking at this particular data. So connecting all these things together and taking the internet into consideration, this particular domain is called as the Internet of Things. So basically the simplest definition that you can give here is connecting each and everything that is surrounding you to the internet, and then getting the data, and to be able to interact with that particular device is nothing but the Internet of Things. So now let's take a look at what are the things that we are talking about. So the things can be anyone out of these things that we have listed here, or they can be any goods, they can be any objects that are around you, they can be machines, they can be appliances, buildings, vehicles, animals, people, anything. So anything that you are connecting to the internet, and if you are connecting some sensors, or if you are connecting some device in order to track that particular object or track that particular animal or a vehicle, and if you are placing some smoke sensors or temperature sensors, and you are able to get the data from that particular area, then that becomes like a thing for you. So anything that is surrounding you, and with which you can interact, with which you can get the data out of it, that can be considered as a particular thing in the IoT domain. So now coming to the applications. So I've listed out few applications here which are working on the IoT domain, and many people are investing into this particular space. So the first such application is a smart healthcare. So in this particular applications, we have got so many devices in the market which are called as a fitness trackers, or which are called as smart watches. And basically what they do is they are monitoring vital signs in the human body, and they sense the heartbeat, they sense the blood pressure, and these particular products are transferring your data, whatever they are measuring, onto the cloud. And there is an analysis that is going on this particular data, and if the abnormalities are observed in the data that is being measured by these devices, then the device also suggests you what is the corrective things that can be done during this time. So whether visiting hospital can be one such particular thing, or if the data is becoming too much sort of dangerous, and if the person is really having a risk at that particular point of time, then also like maybe in the future we'll get devices which can directly integrate with the hospital and which can automatically send you an ambulance, or they can automatically have a consulting doctor who can then take up this case. So having these devices on the body, like a wearable device, are going to really help out the people who are suffering from these devices. And if the doctors know that okay, this particular person has a weak heart, or if he has certain ailments, then these devices can really help out that person in overcoming that, and bringing that problem to notice at a very early instant can really save someone's life. The next application that I'll be talking about is a smart city application. So basically this is like a very huge project, but then basically in this, every building or each and every component of a particular city is connected to the internet. So that way the integration is very easily possible, and then everyone keeps getting the data from each and every nook and corner of that particular city. And you can know, for example, if you want to visit a hospital, so you can know in how much time you can reach there, and you can also get to know if there is any congestion in the traffic on the roads, and if you can take any alternative paths. You can also come to know about any ambulance services that are present on your mobile phone, so you can directly integrate that with with your particular problem, and then you can get an ambulance directly in your home, and you can do everything on a mobile platform and on an app based thing where you need not go anywhere, and all these particular things can happen in this particular application. So this is like a very big application, but then currently like very small subsystems of these are already being implemented. The next application is the vehicle tracking or a thing tracking. So in this particular application, the GPS modules are connected onto the vehicle, and we directly get the information of the coordinates of that particular vehicle. So we can also have these particular products on small children, or on some of the things that are very valuable, and they might have a problem with not citing them in a particular area, or if the area is too much crowded, you might get problem in identifying them. So such kind of things can be tracked very easily. So we can have a module that is installed on that particular product, and you will be able to get the data of that particular thing, and then you can easily track that particular module. So the next application is the smart agriculture application. So here you can see that so in the agricultural you have so many different things that is based on the temperature and based on the moisture levels. You will be having you can trigger some of the other things, that is if your moisture content in the soil is less, you can trigger a motor, or if your temperature is too high, then you can take some corrective measures for that. And you have a smart drone system which can directly sort of spray the pesticides at a particular place in the farm. So all these things can be done in a real-time monitoring space, and then you can have like a smart tractor which can automatically sort of go to a particular place, and it can extract the crops, or it can harvest the crops, or it can sow the seed. So all these things can be done like integrating into a one application, and this is one of the applications that many people are targeting on, that is a smart agriculture application. And then coming to the application of a secure home, that is, if you can see this image, so there is fire alarm, there is water, temperature, so all these things are being monitored continuously. Your network and your lights, everything is under the IoT connected space, and your door locks that are there, those are also locks are connected to the internet. So just seeing at an app on your mobile, you can see all the status of these devices, that is whether your main door is locked or not, or whether your garage door is locked or not, and whether all your sensors are recording proper information, or whether there is any problem in a particular room, that is whether your air conditionings are working properly or not. So all these things can be sort of taken a look at using just a particular app, and all this connectivity happens back end, and then each and every device can be integrated into a whole system. So now we'll take a look at how to design applications in this particular IoT domain, and what are the basic things that you need in order to create an end-to-end application. So here I've just listed out some of the 5 sensors that that our human body has, that is the sight, hearing, taste, touch and smell, and all these are communicating with the common controller, that is our brain, and it is able to send the data, and it is able to receive the correct response from the brain. So the brain is like a controller, and then all these 5 sensors that we have, they are going to sort of give the brain the exact knowledge of what is happening in the surrounding, and what sort of corrective actions can be taken as a response to those things. So in a similar way, if we can create applications for the IoT products which have these sensors on it, and the sensors which can do these following things. So they can sort of, sound sensors are there, we have cameras which can see, and we have sensors which can identify whether the temperature is more or not, whether the humidity is more. So all these sensors can come into this particular bucket, and then the most important thing is the connectivity. That is, once you have the connectivity on these particular sensors and the controller, then you can transfer this data to a particular server, and then that data can be analyzed with some high-end algorithms. But out of all these, the most important thing is the identity. That is, if you have any passive thing that is there in your surroundings, and you want to transfer the data from that particular thing that you have, then you need to give it an identity. That is, you need to give that particular thing a number or a particular name, and it is going to transfer data on that particular name. And when you try to contact, if you want to do or interact with that particular thing, then you can use this particular identity. So the identity is nothing but, it is like a name that you give to that particular device, and that is going to sort of create it like a person-to-person approach, where you are able to talk with that particular device, and the device is will be giving the response to you in that particular way. So in designing applications for IoT, you just need to have a basic controller, which is like our brain, and then it is connected to a few sensors, and it has got a connectivity. So the connectivity can be anything, it can be Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or any connectivity which can transfer the data from that particular device onto the cloud. And apart from all this, you need to create an identity for it. That is, you need to name that device like a model or something like that, and then you can interact with that particular device using that identity. So now coming to the concepts of Internet of Things, and how these particular products are designed like in a bigger system. So the first and the basic thing that we have shown here is the wireless sensor network, or WSN, and this is a concept of a node and a gateway. So if you can see in this diagram, so there are a lot of sensor nodes. So all these nodes are connected in a particular network, and this total sensor node network is transferring data to a gateway. So the gateway here it is shown as a Wi-Fi router, but gateway can be any other device which is little complex, and it is able to take the data from the sensor nodes, and then that gateway's responsibility is to upload the data onto the internet or onto the cloud server, where that particular information can be directly accepted onto the mobile phones, or you can access that data from the from your computer. So this particular architecture is being followed in most of the devices that are the products that are in this particular IoT domain. So you have lot of sensor nodes, and all these sensor nodes communicate with each other. They get and transfer data from each other, and then they transfer all this data onto the gateway, and this gateway is responsible for transferring this information onto the main cloud server, from where the data can be distributed to any number of people who are having a mobile phone or access to that particular cloud. So this is the architecture for the IoT devices. So as explained in the previous slide, so we are having a few sensors at if you can see at the down portion of this particular slide. So we have the energy meter, the smoke sensor, light, temperature, humidity control, and we have HVAC control. So all these particular sensors are forming the nodes, and then they are communicating to the IoT gateway using different protocols. So if you can see here, these are all the communication protocols, that is the Wi-Fi, the Zigbee, the RFID, and we can see the video camera and the RFID tag, which are communicating with the respective modules. So all this data that is coming from the nodes is being transferred to the IoT gateway. So let's say you have a system like a farm automation or an agriculture automation, and you have a very big field and you want to get the data from each and every point in that field. Then what you do is you can connect different nodes at a different places in your farm, and then you can have a single gateway to sort of get the data from each of the nodes and then transfer the data onto your cloud platform. So basically that is what is the architecture that is shown here. So once the data is with the IoT gateway, then the data is will be transferred onto the cloud, and then data analytics can be run on that particular cloud, and then we can observe some patterns that are coming up from these particular devices. And once the data is in the cloud, then it can be accessed from anywhere. That is, you need not manually present at that particular place, but you can be anywhere and you can access that data from there, and you will be able to analyze that data. So once you install these devices at that particular locations, then it is just about analyzing that particular data and then using that data in order to get the proper analytics for you. So that is the architecture that is mostly widely followed in these particular applications, which involve many sensors, many nodes, and then they have the gateway, and then they transfer the information in this particular chain upwards to the cloud. So having looked at the IoT architecture in the previous two slides, that is about the wireless sensor networks as well as the IoT architecture. So these are the requirements that a general node can have. So node is a very simple sort of a device which can have some basic sensors. And if you have seen in the previous diagram, so there are a lot of nodes in a particular application. So therefore, because there are many such nodes that are present in a whole IoT application, so there are some requirements of that particular node. And the requirements are something like this, that is, the node has to take a very low power, and it has to have low cost. Why? Because we are using many such nodes in an application. So therefore, if the cost of the node is too high, then your overall application cost becomes very high. Therefore, you need to keep the cost of this node to be very less. And also, because you're keeping these nodes in maybe hundreds or thousands of numbers, so the power that these particular nodes take should be very less, because once you install these nodes, you cannot keep interchanging these nodes with the batteries, or you cannot keep on changing a particular thing once they have installed, because these nodes will be installed in thousands of numbers. So therefore they have to take very low power, so that in a single charge they will be able to run for a longer duration. So these are some of the requirements that are that we have for a node. And then they should, in the communication side, they should be able to communicate with another nearby node that is there, or they can also communicate directly with the gateway and transfer the information to the gateway. So this is pretty much like what we have seen in the before slide, but just highlighting some of the requirements of a node. And then coming to the requirements of a gateway. So the gateway is responsible for collecting the data from all these nodes and then transferring the data onto the cloud, that is the IoT server. So therefore a gateway should have these particular requirements, that is, it should be very secure, because all the data is going through the gateway to the particular cloud. So the security issues on a gateway are very high, and it should have like a couple of mechanisms in which it can transfer the data. That is, if the first particular mechanism fails or the communication link is broken, then it should be able to transfer the data to the cloud in some alternative communication protocol, so that the information reaches to the cloud from all these sensor nodes very easily. And it should enable remote updates, that is, if you've already installed this particular system anywhere, then you should be able to just update the whole software just by doing it remotely and not by going manually and updating each one of these devices. So that is the most important thing in an IoT application. And so these are the following requirements for the gateway. So now looking at some of the IoT servers that are already in the market. So there are many such IoT servers that are currently able to cater to the needs of people, but here we have few servers listed out and which we will be using in the subsequent course. So that is the thingspeak.com. We have listed AWS, that is Amazon Web Services, and Firebase, this is again from Google, and then data.sparkfun.com, where you can log your data and analyze the data very easily, whatever you're transferring from your devices. And then another IoT server is from the IBM Bluemix. So all these servers are basically making our life easier in transferring data to them and then analyzing that data on the cloud level. So that once the data is in the cloud, then a person who is there anywhere, who is having a connectivity to the internet, we will be able to look at this particular data, and he'll be able to analyze that particular data. So that is the importance of these IoT servers in all these applications. So now taking a look at the IoT infrastructure, that is, so there are a lot of companies which are coming up to build the IoT infrastructure which can support all these sort of requirements of these devices that are coming up and the IoT products that are coming up in the market space. So you've got many companies which are building the controllers, which are building the servers, that is the Amazon, IBM Watson, Bluemix. So these people are building the servers, and they can handle the data. They have a lot of these memory which can sort of store all this data into their platforms. And there are companies which are working on the IoT gateways, like the Cisco or the Intel, and they're working on like how all these nodes can sort of communicate with that particular gateway, and how that gateway can be made robust so that it can transfer the information onto the cloud without any problem. And companies like ARM, and they are like giants who are making these controllers, and nowadays most of these architectures that are followed in this particular devices are based on ARM, that is ARM 7, ARM 9 or ARM 11 architectures. So these are all the infrastructures that are being built up by a lot of companies in order to support the growing demand in this particular IoT space. So now we have come to the end of the session. So this was about the architecture of IoT and what are some of the terminologies that are used. And in the next session, we'll be taking a look at the devices that are used in the IoTs. That is, we'll be taking a look at the controllers that are used and what are the specifications of those controllers, and some of the devices that are used in this particular domain. Thank you.